We're going to turn our attention now to Turkey. A developing story overnight there. Their relationship with the West is hanging in the balance, with last night's general election vote likely heading to now a runoff later this month after neither candidate secured an outright majority.
Now, the vote will decide Turkey's foreign policy direction, with challengers vowing to build a stronger relationship with NATO and the European Union. Now, the main opposition leader has also accused Russia of interfering in the vote. Journalist Ali Mustafa joins us now from Istanbul, one of my favourite cities on the whole planet, it has to be said. It is an amazing place where East meets West. Where's it going to go, East or West?
Neither way. And if you look at what happened last night, it seems that the wheeling, dealing ways of the long-running Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will continue. This was a long night, 90% voter turnout estimated, and it went down to the wire, so much so that this morning you're still below 99% reporting on districts. Given that Erdogan secured just over 49% of the vote, Kılıçdaroğlu, his main rival and a contender, is around 45, between 45 and 46. And the kingmaker, this nationalist candidate that not many people outside of Turkey have heard of, Sinan Ogan, is at around 5%. And when it goes into a runoff 2 weeks from now, on the 28th of May, Sinan Ogan, this minor candidate, will emerge, or likely emerge, as a kingmaker. But whoever comes, and most likely it'll be Erdogan, because the way these politics in Turkey works, it's almost these tectonic plates. Making alliances is always opposed in some way or the other, and this is what happened here as well. You had a table of 6 opposition parties that backed this candidate, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, from the CHP, which is one of the founding parties of Turkey, make an indirect alliance with a pro-Kurdish HDP. Now, while that garnered him some support in the East, it turned a lot of Turkish nationalists, of which 65% of this country identifies as nationalistic, turned against Kılıçdaroğlu and backed Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Interesting you mentioned tectonic plates. The backdrop, I suppose, to all of this and this particular election is the 2 earthquakes earlier in the year, the rampant inflation that's making everybody feel worse off. And I suppose that will be one of the reasons that President Erdogan's feeling the heat this time after having won so many elections so easily in the past.
When it comes to Turkey, you have to realize that economic or other issues which basically have to do with, feeding your family, for example, or the earthquake, which was the worst natural calamity that this country has faced ever in its existence, don't really matter. This is a country where politics still is run on culture wars. When Erdogan came to power more than 20 years ago, around 20 years ago, he came because the pendulum had swung so much to the other side that there were limits to people who covered their heads to education, to social welfare, to even politics. In fact, the first woman who entered the parliament here with a headscarf was in the late 1990s. And despite all this inflation, this runaway inflation, 174% unofficially, earthquake, which has killed more than 50,000 people, destroyed a huge chunk of this country, the size of parts of Britain, some would argue, didn't really matter, because it came down to culture wars. And when Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the opposition candidate, made an informal alliance with the HDP, the pro-Kurdish HDP, it became a question of security versus terrorism. And in that context, Erdogan, who is seen as a quote-unquote strong man, well, he has no rival.